before the gold rush, Dr. John Marsh saw the hills and valleys of this pristine land and envisioned an opportunity to create an agricultural paradise.
He purchased 40,000 acres here in East Contra Costa County in a Mexican land grant, built in adobe, and later an impressive stone house. Now he began sending letters east which described the rich farmland, letters so inspirational that pioneers immediately began a westward migration that changed forever the course of American history.
This land, along with Marsh's stone mansion, is part of a plan to create a historical and recreational park where visitors may learn about Marsh, his role in early California migration, and the history of the agricultural boom that followed. The acreage, with its rolling hills and California oaks, will be connected to other open spaces, thus preserving valuable wildlife habitats and give people unlimited recreational opportunities. Tim Worth from the Trust for Public Land works to preserve beautiful open spaces for the public to enjoy.
It's 6 square miles, and it's one of the largest undeveloped properties left in all of Contra Costa County. What makes it really extraordinary is that it links together with a whole series of existing open space areas from Mount Diablo into Morgan Territory, into Round Valley, into Los Vaqueros Reservoir. And so there's the opportunity here to eventually have this incredible wildlife corridor, one of the biggest in the whole Bay Area, and then the potential for incredible recreational opportunities for the residents of this growing area. You could take a trail all the way from Brentwood up to Mount Diablo.
Park architect Gene Metz talks about plans for the park.
Because highways are being built, housing developments are occurring, this land will not stand alone forever. It's an excellent opportunity to provide a setting for the house, a setting for this history. It's the best example that carries us from the missions to the gold rush to the Victorians that we now celebrate. We need this period of history so that we can know our heritage, so that we can value California today even more than we have in the past.
If you go to that property today, you are seeing almost exactly what John Marsh saw. Marsh was the first California doctor. He was in great demand, and as a doctor, he was a godsend to the Native Americans. He immediately began treating them with quinine for malaria, something they had no knowledge of, something that brought a great deal of relief. The stone house out in Brentwood was finished in 1856 by John Marsh. He built that house for the wife that he was so much in love with. She died before the house was completed. It is 3 stories high. It has 7 gables. It has a wonderful tower that he could climb up in and look around at all he owned. The property itself was already the place that people stopped when they went up or down California. Everyone stopped at the Marsh property where they could get food and water and conversation. It was called by the San Francisco newspapers the most beautiful farmhouse in California. And I think that makes it very important to Californians to have something real, something three-dimensional that looks like our history.
You know, this home used to be called the grandest house in all of California. Since it was built, the house has been a headquarters of one of the more remarkable stories. John Marsh himself lived in the corner of the salon for a few weeks before he was murdered. From that time, it was lived in by a series of ranch foremen, and finally, it was lived in by the livestock superintendent for a firm called Balfour Guthrie, who owned the entire Marsh Grant at the time. The Marsh home is important to the history of California simply because it is certainly on a par with many of the other homes that are recognized nationally. For example, Sutter's Fort, Old Monterey, the custom house there where Tom Larkin lived, the Vallejo homes in Petaluma and Sonoma. This house is important to history simply because it represents the beginning of settlement in California. It represents a purpose in settlement, and it represents the man who actually started it all.
The house is in poor condition. It's been deteriorating through neglect for many years, but it's a very sound piece of geometry. It lines up, it's not leaning or settling, but the stonework is becoming quite weak, so it needs to be reinforced and tied together. And once that's done, it'll be safe, and it can be a museum, but even better than that, I think it can be a place of activity, a place for the community to go, have meetings, have lectures. It can serve as a cultural resource for the entire county and for the region. It's a place to learn and celebrate what we know of California history. It's a place to reconnect with Native Americans and learn about what the interaction was like between Native Americans and the earliest settlers. It's a place for the orchards and vineyards that John Marsh planted there. It's a place to show off what the early agriculture of California was all about.
The new park will hopefully interpret the agricultural history of this area. You know, East Contra Costa has been well known for its agriculture for well over 100 years, beginning with John Marsh and those first vines and orchards that he planted near his adobe. And then as time went on, the early settlers that began settling here in the 1860s, shortly after the gold rush, ultimately found the riches that they didn't find in the gold field. They found those in the soils of East Contra Costa, planting wheat. And by the 1890s, this was the largest wheat producing area between New Orleans and San Francisco. And then by the teens, 1914 and 15, we saw irrigation come into through East Contra Costa, and row crops and orchards began to come. Unfortunately, much of that early agricultural land has been replaced with pink condos and housing tracts. I worry sometimes about us losing some of what our forefathers brought and what this area stood for. And I'm hoping that through the realization of this park, we'll be able to keep it for all time.
We must restore the great stone house that John Marsh built and the adobe in which he lived for so long to take its place among the other wonderful historic structures of the state of California. It's the link between the Bidwell Mansion, Fort Ross, the Governor's Mansion, even Hearst Castle. It's the link back to the missions. We must restore this house and the surrounding site in order to commemorate the period of history that links that house to these other wonderful historical structures of California.
Brentwood, one of the fastest growing cities in the whole state, will grow up around this park. This is their signature landscape, and it will be the incredible relationship that lends a great deal to the quality of life for people of East County.
You've seen the incredible opportunity that exists to create a park of such historic and recreational significance. You've heard from the people who see the value in preserving open space, protecting habitat, and educating the public on the rich history of the land. Now, we've taken the first steps, but there's much more work to be done. All the components are there, but we still need your support. Your participation is critical if this vision is to become a reality. Join community leaders, historic preservationists, and park advocates to build on a pioneer's vision of an expanded state park at the John Marsh home.